Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Well, welcome along to this latest RTÉ GAA podcast. We're going to be chatting hurling for the next while. Football a little bit later on. Shane McGrath is with us, and huge amount of excitement building around this one, Shane. I think it's just after last week, Munster Championship fever has taken over. And let's start in Munster because we've got a couple of cracking games to look forward to. Which one are you looking forward to the most?
Sure, it has to be Limerick and Clare, Jackie. Everything that went on last weekend, last year as well, I suppose, not in between them, drawn the round robin, extra time, the Ulster Final. And I just think everybody's wondering now.
They drew in the league as well, didn't they?
Coming to play Limerick in the. That's it, yeah. Like, they did, yeah. Well, no, there was a 6-point hammering in the league this year, Rory.
Last year's league. Last year's league,
Last year's league, yeah. So I think people are wondering, Jackie, like, which Clare are coming now to play the match. Mm-hmm. Like, is it the Clare from the Munster Final, or is it the Clare that maybe we've seen in the All-Ireland semi-final against Kilkenny, or even to a degree against Tip the last day? And they've lots of questions. It wasn't all bad. They scored 223, but I suppose it's the 5 goals. And if they concede 2 goals against Limerick, they really won't have a hope of getting a victory. So I think that's what everyone's wondering. It's big week for Brian Lohan now. Is he going to stick with the goalie? Is he going to stick with Foodie? Is he going to go back to Quilligan? Is he going to give Tony a free roaming role, or because Cathal Barrett did a great job at him, man-marking him the last day, and Dave Fitzgerald will come back in. He'll be massive boost for him. But look, I just think that if have Waterford poked this beast, that people feel that while Limerick won the game and that they weren't anywhere near their best, and I suppose they weren't. The stats to prove that they only scored 7 points in the second half, Jackie. Only 3 of those from play. A long time, I suppose, in hurling terms or in games terms, that this Limerick group only scored 3 points from playing a half of hurling. Small things like Gillane, it's probably the worst penalty I've seen Gillane hit. Maybe it was just first day out, lads, but I just feel that there's a massive thing coming. There's a massive performance coming from Limerick, and if Clare don't bring that Munster Final performance and more, I could see Limerick winning this by 7, 8, 9 points. But that's why I feel that game is the one I'd be looking forward to the most the weekend anyway.
It's interesting, Rory. I haven't seen John Kiley as animated as he was after the game ever before. It's clearly got to him. He's talking about the hype. He's talking about all the BS that's being talked about this team. The reaction out of him will tell you that, they feel that they're under pressure. You get that sense from him.
Yeah, but I suppose they're under pressure. They're up on a pedestal and they're there to go after. They're the top team and have been now for a good number of years. From that point of view, they will feel a little bit of pressure, but I suppose what he described it as a softening up exercise. I don't necessarily think it was that people were trying to soften him up to the potential of, what hype leads to, which is complacency. It was Jim Gavin's biggest fear in his time managing Dublin, and I suppose Limerick are entering into a very similar type of mindset now in terms of the run that they've been on and the dangers of outside noise maybe affecting some of their performance. But I don't know if there was anything too surprising. I mean, I was on here a couple of weeks back. I didn't think this All-Ireland was an open and shut case. I always felt that once we got into championship hurling, that things would level out a wee bit. Of course they're favourites, and of course they're raging hot favourites, and it's going to be some team that eventually takes them down, and that may not happen this year, but because they are that bit ahead of everybody else still, and we might even see a reaction. But what we're also going to see, and it's only natural, is the team, it will start to wear and tear. They're on the road a long time. There was a little bit of lethargy, I'd suggest, in their play the last day. They didn't have that same zip. I don't care if you can bench press 140 kilos. Your legs are still the most important thing in terms of getting you around the field in a hurling context. And that was just a small little kind of a window that said, do they have that same go? Do they have that same drive and want and will to go that extra bit with all the success that they've had? And if they haven't, maybe there is a window for other teams to step in. And if they don't, that is not only a natural thing. I mean, it's very hard to sustain that level of sheer excellence that they've been producing for so long without, at some point, a little bit of a drop off. But we could, as Shane said, see the Bear unleash fury this weekend, which is something to look forward to.
Yeah, and look, no better team to bring it out of them than Clare, Shane, I would suggest. So for Limerick, what about that point that Rory makes then about them being that far ahead of the pack? Because I think there are other people who would suggest that Waterford played so well, they showed people a blueprint of how to beat this Limerick team, and maybe there are chances for people to beat them. What do you reckon?
Yeah, there are. I think Waterford, they brought everything. The intensity was massive. They definitely woke up Monday morning, Davy did, while, at the Waterford public, I'd say, Jackie, even listening to people going in along there in Hurlers, they were saying, if we can keep it down to 8 or 9 points, that'll be great. We can take that into the Cork game. So I'd say the Waterford public were delighted with the performance, but I'd say the group themselves, when they look back in it, Jackie, they had 9 wides in the second half, and some of them were bad wides, after Garrod Hegarty sending off, they took the next 2 shots at goals and they both went wide. And then Tom Morrissey went down the field and got a point and put it back to a goal again. So they're the small little 1%ers, as we're talking about, to get victory. But look, they've definitely shown everyone else that, you bring an intensity, you bring a desire, okay, you get your matchups right. And tactically, it was very interesting what they did. Avoided one side of the field for the whole first half, really. Kyle Hayes' side of the field. As I said, Limerick went short, I think it was 16 times. By short, I mean inside the 45 with the puck out. But they never let Barry Nash get one of them. So I'm sure those are things, Jackie, that Brian Lohan and them will look at and go, that definitely worked. The flip side is, and I've always said this, you've the Pep Guardiola of GAA involved with Connacht. So he's going to obviously look at this and examine it, look at Clare, see where there can be exploited, and he's going to make changes. I don't think Limerick are going to set up exactly the same again the next day, Jackie, as what they did against Waterford, because I'd say Paul Connacht will realise we have to change something here. And whatever that might be, would it be someone maybe different starting? And we obviously know Declan Hannon's out, so Mike Casey will go in there. But will they throw in a Cathal O'Neill, I wonder? Will they throw in a Conor Boylan just for something different maybe? And I think that's what we'll see. So, I always think Will O'Donoghue will be, him and Jamie Barron, they've had great battles down to the years. And to be fair to Will O'Donoghue, he's won most of them. But Jamie Barron won that battle the other day. So he's, in a personal sense, feeling he has to bring something different as well. So while people will feel, they can be got at, I still feel that it's a crescendo is rising with him, Jackie. I think that the last day, whatever bit of dirty diesel maybe might have been there, and everybody else is coming up to the pitch now, a championship, like Rory said, I still think that they'll challenge each other now during the week massively. Kylie will challenge him massively. What a place to be in. You still won the game, and they're probably none of them happy. That's why I feel there's more coming. Even if you look at their bench, lads, and we don't want to talk about Limerick all the time, because I think Clare are coming with a big performance too. They got nothing off their bench as regards scores. If you look down normally, Limerick are getting 3-4 points. David Reedy, Cathal O'Neill, even Colin Coughlin didn't see time. He might see more time now again. Whereas Waterford lads got a great bounce off the bench. Particularly for me, I think Patrick Fitzgerald has to start at the weekend. Yeah. I know he's young and everything, but he's a serious talent. Ozzy might start as well. So look, I do think, there is areas you can go with them, but because of the coach they have, I think there's a few tweaks coming in the Gaelic ground Saturday night against Clare, Jackie.
Yeah, look, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a cracker for sure. What about Cork Waterford then, Rory? From what we're hearing, this is going to be an absolutely outrageous atmosphere in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And I think first chance to get a look at Cork as well. Pat Ryan, what will he have seen last weekend, and what's he going to be thinking coming into this one?
It's a very. I was thinking about it last night. You're spot on. The first thing is going to be a huge crowd, and a lot of red. So, and this is where home advantage, I suppose, comes into play, which should give Cork a boost, I'm sure, going in on Sunday. But a very different set of circumstances in the dugouts. For instance, you've got one manager who's really, he's making his championship debut at senior level, and you've another manager who's very, very much wily and a long time on the road. One who's quite gregarious and vivacious and loud, and all action on the sideline. And Pat would be the opposite. He's fairly quiet, fairly circumspect, but pretty steely too at the same time. And I think the impression I get from Cork at the minute is very much a Pat Ryan team. There's little or no talk. We've heard nothing come out since the league semi-finals. It's very, very hard to put a gauge on what kind of team he's going to pick, given how much mud he threw at the wall during the league campaign. Who's going to play full-back? Owen Downey is suspended. So that's a big problem, given the fact that that is a potential weakness. And as Shane said, you're looking at the potential for Austin Gleeson to start. And a lot of people think that maybe 14 might be the place where he could do some damage. Still have some injuries to clear up, but so many unknowns and so many question marks about Cork in loads of different ways. And I think, Jackie, we really don't have a clue. And none of them will be answered in any way, in any serious fashion, until 5 to 10 to 6 on Sunday.
It's hard to get a read on Cork, Shane, isn't it? Because the league, particularly that league semi-final against Kilkenny, I think people didn't really know what they're going to expect of this team. But Rory's right; it's been bubbling away quietly in the background. What do you think we're going to get from them?
Yeah, look, I don't know, Jackie. To be honest, like I haven't a clue what their team is going to be. Obviously, they do. But I'd say.
You're some crowd now and tip to be talking about teams and not knowing what they're going to look like. We were just doing our best for the alphabetical system to make just to remind people how important the alphabetical system is, that we have to go A, B, C, D, and that's all we were doing, right? So maybe we started a new trend there with that. But I like to say I heard that Shea Kingston mightn't be available, that because he's hamstring, that Sean O'Donoghue is a serious doubt. Okay, Mark Coleman obviously is out. Alan Connolly hasn't played a match, right? Yeah. So
Alan Connolly is out as well, which I think is a big loss.
So your fullback, your guy who you've gone to fullback, Owen Downey. So maybe Robert Downey might step in there, maybe. But I just think it's real long grass stuff. Anyway, waiting in long grass stuff from Cork and Pat Ryan. Heard nothing about them. Maybe they're going to come all guns blazing. But I'm just wondering, who steps in and who has the same influence as Mark Coleman? Who has the same kind of bit of steel as Sean O'Donoghue? Who has the same go-to speed, power, get a score when you need it as Shane Kingston? So maybe they've all those boxes ticked, Jackie. But I just think Waterford are coming into it in a great place. And they have that championship experience. They'll take great confidence from what they did. I was looking back at it again, while they were very, very close. Only 2 of Waterford starting forward scored the last day, lads. Neil Montgomery didn't score, Mikey Kiley didn't score, Jack Prendergast didn't score, and Colin Dunford didn't score. So I'm sure they'll look at that and say, well, we need to get more of you on the board here, lads. You know what I mean? What was it they scored? 19 points. It won't win a championship game. So I'm sure they'll look at that. So will they go with Ozzy from the start? Will they go to Patrick Fitzgerald and just throw him into the expanse of Parky Queeve, where it is getting to kind of top of the ground hurling, and that pitch, to be fair, is always in great nick. So that's why I think Waterford are coming into it in a better place. To say on the crowd definitely does help, lads. It was 8-9 to 1 to Limerick the last day there. I was walking in along going in along from the square in Hurlers last year, just popped in, had a bit of time. Guy behind me from Dungarvan, he says, "What do you think today?" I said, there's a fair Limerick crowd around. He says, I came up from Dungarvan today. He said, nobody would come with me. And I said, why? He said, don't know. I said, they just didn't feel it. They felt it was too cold and stuff. And that's what I was saying during the week. I still think it's a bit early, Jackie, to be playing hurling championship. And we're in the end of April, and there could be teams with their year done. But look, it's a debate for another day. It's a full debate. I think push it back a few weeks and start it in May. And maybe hurling is being forgotten about a little. Maybe they're trying to get it done and dusted with regards to the bigger picture. But look, there'll be a massive crowd there. It'll be mainly Cork. But I hope the Waterford crowd go and get behind the team. Because I tell you what, they have a good team. They have a good team. They have a good setup. and I think they're in a good place. Tadhg de Búrca, massive loss, as we know, lads. But you know what? Tom Barron came in and he hurled very well the last day, and Jack Fagan was fine doing that job, and Caleb Lyons did a super job in Keane Lynch. So I think they'll be, while other years, lads, I think it would have been death if Tadhg de Búrca was out. Whereas now, I do think they have the bodies to come in, Jackie. So I think Waterford are going in a great place.
Yeah, it's funny, Rory, because you'd say in one stage, yeah, they're coming in a great place because like they had the All-Ireland champions on the rack. They still didn't win it.
No.
So now they're actually under pressure to get a result this weekend. They do actually kind of need to come to Cork and get something, because otherwise their championship is, you know, like their destiny isn't even in their own hands then after that, you know?
Davy's record against Cork is pretty good in championship with all the teams that he's managed over the while. So, and all going all the ways back, I suppose, to the All-Ireland final that he won in 2013 after a replay. And he'll fancy this in a big way, but they have pressure themselves. This is going to be a tricky game. If they lose it, like you could probably say Cork could afford to lose it, but then look at the run that Cork have. Cork don't want to be getting down to the last game and having to go up to the Gaelic grounds to try and get a result and save their season. Now, look, you don't know what way the round robin will pan out. And maybe Limerick are already in a final at that stage, but look, that's for another day. No, it's very hard. Like I said before, the last week's one that I felt Waterford were a bit of a mystery. I think Cork are as well, and we just don't know at the minute. The team that will get picked will probably give us some clue to what Pat Ryan's thinking. I think what we will definitely see from Cork is there won't be any passengers carried anymore if you are not able or not prepared to put in hooks and blocks, chase back, put in a proper shift from numbers 1 to 15. You won't be tolerated. So I'd expect a big upping in the work rate on that front. But it's just whether or not the depth of personnel is going to be there from a starting 15 perspective, and whether or not he's found enough players to add, a little bit more variety in their play, given that Waterford have that championship match already under their belt.
Interesting. Yeah, looking forward to both of those. So Saturday, Limerick, Clare, 7 o'clock. Sunday, Cork, Waterford, 4 o'clock. Let's go to Leinster then, lads. And look, no doubt about it, Shane, the big one, Kilkenny, Galway on Sunday at 2 o'clock in Nolan Park. Henry going back to Kilkenny. There's so many subplots here. What do you make of Kilkenny last weekend? It's hard to get a read on them after the game that they played against Westmeath, considering they gave them such a hiding. But where do you think this Kilkenny team are at, Shane?
I'd say they're in a good place, Jackie. I think like getting TJ back and him hitting form, Mullen hitting form as well, scored 6 points the last day. John Donnelly has carried on his good form. He scored 4 points. Padraig Walsh, I think, is back out to his more natural place of wing back. And I just thought, 29 points, okay, no goals against Westmeath, but we suppose it's hard to gauge because I suppose Westmeath were down a few bodies as well, so they went more defensively because they just didn't have the bodies. They don't have the strength and depth and panel in Liam McCarthy hurling. And if they were missing these bodies, we'll say in a Joe McDonagh competition, they might have gone on and get a victory, but just not at this level. So they probably went more defensively. That's why I think Kilkenny didn't get more goals. They held Westmeath to 7 points. I think they actually only scored 3 of those from play for the whole match. So I think they'll be happy enough. I mean, regardless of who you're playing, I mean, you just can't beat what a victory does for a team. There's better form in training the following week. The management are in better form. A little bit of pressure gone off. I think it's a great start to championship hurling for Derek Ling. Like, if his first game was the Wexford first game now, Jackie, if it was away in Salt Hill and you don't get a victory, the whole dynamic changes. Whereas it was Westmeath, they knew they were going to win, but they had to get the job done. They got the job done. And, they have, as I said, like, TJ's back and he's hurling well. And I think that's massive for the group, because as far as we know, Paddy Deegan and Billy Drennan are going to miss a couple of games, and Paddy Deegan in particular. So, there's 2 go-to guys that they're missing, but just getting TJ back and the confidence lads get from him and knowing that they can get a ball into him. So I think they're in a good place. I think Derek and Henry, it's funny for me. And I think Derek Ling and Henry Shefflin, it's like what Darragh Egan and Darren Gleeson are going to be on the sideline with each other at the weekend. Like, that Darragh Egan and Darren Gleeson are the best of friends. Like, they travel to training together every night over to Hurlers. They would be very, very close. They were both kind of goalkeeping mode, so they always had that. 2 brilliant hurling brains, and they would have basically come up come up along together, like, you know, and would know each other so well. And it's the same for me for Henry and Derek. Like, the dynamic, the difference in the way Henry is approaching the Kilkenny manager this year compared to last year, like, with the thing with Brian and shaking the hands, like, he's facing up against a good friend of his, like a friend that he played the whole way up along with each other. I think they're similar ages, lads. So that's, even that in itself, I suppose, you know, is going to be interesting to see how that goes. I think they will do whatever it takes. They're both notorious winners. Derek Ling, even as a player, rarely lost against Galway, so he'll be trying to steal him that way. So I think if they have to hop off each other on the sideline, they will, but they'll leave it at full time. So
Shane,
me, Jackie, look, how do I come back? Yeah.
Shane, would you say they'd be texting each other this week?
No, not texting. They might send each other maybe a small TikTok video, just what they're doing, as regards what they're going to wear and stuff like that. But I'd say there'd be no texting, no. No, geez, look, look, I think those dynamics are interesting. We're all human too, like, you know what I mean? You go out and you play sports. Sure, Jackie, you've played basketball, maybe lined up against someone that you went to college with, was a good buddy of yours, but you just have to park it and you have to move on. So I think all those things said, the Kilkenny crowd, I think, are going to come out in force. I think they'll travel to Nolan Park. Be interested to see how many Galway people get down there. But I think, to answer your question, Jackie, I do think Kilkenny are coming into it in a good place. They have their win, have their man back on the field, TJ. And it just, again, what Galway team are coming to the party? Is it the Galway team that played unreal against Limerick last year on our semi-final while they didn't win? I mean, if, let's say, Galway, hypothetically, lads, give Kilkenny the start they give to Wexford, and it's 2-1, 2-2 to a point. That's another thing, like, that's going to be interesting to see. So, but look, it should be a cracking game. I think they'll both go at it too, lads. I don't think it'll be, look, we'll see you again in the Leinster final, because Kilkenny have to go down to Wexford Park as well, and this Wexford team have a good record against Kilkenny at the moment. So
they do. Yeah.
They'll both be going guns blazing, lads, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually think a huge Galway crowd will go, Rory, because I think they'll know that. They'll say, this is the game. We want to win. We want to lay down a marker. And I think Henry, in fairness, for his own pride, is going to want to tell him that, lads, I'm not going down there and I'm not losing. Yeah,
and I'd probably make them slight favourites to win the Leinster Championship at this point. So, like, I think Shane is right. Can there be an element of shadowboxing at this point, given how quickly this whole thing is going to be run off? You probably... two teams will ultimately end up in a Leinster final, you would imagine, at this point as well. So, yeah, I think that, will there be a big Galway crowd travel? That's a good question. I mean, the proper dual county, two teams fighting on. Now, I know the football tends to come from a different part to the hurling, but the general GA supporter, like, it's going to be a busy summer if you're a Galway supporter. Very, very busy, I would imagine. Like, they're going to be on the road a lot between football and hurling. So it'll be interesting to see if they do travel. And just one point on support. Support is key. It's absolutely massive. I remember a few years ago, Jackie, I was down in the Gaelic grounds. Cork were playing Mayo in an All-Ireland quarter final, or not a quarter final. It was one of these qualifiers.
Yeah.
I actually ran Mayo quite close. It was back in the time, I think, Peter Healy possibly as manager. But Donnacha O'Connor kicked a score at one stage, and it was about 3 foot wide. I could see it was wide. The whole crowd could see it was wide, but that was the key thing, the whole crowd, because there was only about 40 Cork supporters there and about 15,000 Mayo people. And as soon as the ball went wide, the 15,000 Mayo people in the Mackey stand all got up, and I swear now, let out the most vociferous roar I've ever heard. And straight away, the referee, I think, who was Kieran Brannigan at the time, he ran over and he said, well, you better disallow this score here, lads, because it's obviously wide. But it was a really good indication for me of the difference that a crowd can make and how much impact they can actually have on decisions on the field. And I think that will be key both in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. The Gaelic grounds, I think there'll be a good mix. But it will be interesting to see how many Galway people travel, because the hurling supporters from Galway wouldn't be great on that front now, let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, look, I'll be just hoping that the umpires can spot a ball if it's 3 foot wide.
It was.
Come here, what about the other games in Leinster then, Shane? Wexford, Antrim, Dublin, Westmeath. I guess for Wexford, the start that they had against Galway and the way that they were playing, you were thinking, okay, right, Wexford are here now. But the way that they fell away, would you have concerns about this Wexford team, that now the pressure they're under, what they can deliver? Because that third spot in Leinster is going to be some scramble.
Yeah, and I do feel Antrim are playing them at a great time. like, will they, like Damien Reck and Lee Chin, like Lee Chin's injuries is his AC joint, and it's very, very hard to come. You have to give that time regardless, because if he gets one big hit in that, as physically strong as the guy is, I mean, your AC joint, if you get a big hit in it, you're gone again, and you're putting yourself out for another 3-4 weeks. So, like, are they just going to hold Lee, like, for when they have to play Kilkenny, like, in a couple of weeks, in a few weeks' time, and feel that they'll have enough to get over the line here? So, and Damien Reck as well. I mean, they're standout performer really from last year, in that centre back role. So there's two key guys like that that'll be different. I feel the start they made was unbelievable. Galway get the first point, and I think then Wexford are going 2-2 to a point up after that, but I suppose after that, Jackie, it's what happened after that. They made a whirlwind start, but they got outscored 23 points to 10 after that. Then Galway just kind of took control. There was a savage breeze up in Salt Hill as well. Galway were against it in the first half. They went in at level at half time, and I think a lot of people knew then the writing was on the wall with the second half, with the breeze that was there and the personnel that Wexford were missing, and obviously standout performances then from Niall and etc. So yeah, Wexford. I think Wexford will take heart from the start and how they fought and everything. But I mean, Antrim, like, at the other side, like, I suppose people will look at the Antrim Dublin thing, lads, and who mightn't maybe fully get it like that. They're like, we're an Antrim great to draw with Dublin. But like, Antrim were devastated after that match. Darren Gleeson, they were so down, like, because they knew they were the better team for the whole game up in Corrigan Park. They brought an intensity. They used their home venue to their advantage, and only for Donald Burke getting that goal, it was a sucker punch, like, for Antrim. So while they got the draw and it was important they got the point, it could be vital to them. They'll feel, you know what, now there's no more moral victories now with this, right? We're not going to be this team that everybody's marking off as a 2-pointer. We're not going to be this, we ran on close team. And I think that the weekend now is their chance to really show that. They showed it somewhat against Dublin, Jackie, but can they do it on the road? It's when they go travel. It's when they travel. They don't seem to have the same flair or the same performance. I don't know what it is, but this is their chance now. They have their bodies. Wexford are down to a few bodies. Maybe the confidence is low in the county at the moment in Wexford between with what's going on, because they don't have the strength and depth that the top teams have. And when you're missing players of the likes of the guys they're missing, do they have the bodies come in and fill it? Antrim, this is their chance. I think this has potential to be a serious game at the weekend. And okay, Antrim, you won't expect the Antrim crowd to go the whole way down to Wexford Park. They'd probably be in France as quick, like, that kind of way, really. So they're not going to travel the whole way down to Wexford. It will be on them. It'll be a real siege mentality, as in Darren Gleeson saying, look, we know we're good enough now. We have to get this victory. We finally have to get this win that we're threatening to do now for 3-4 years under his stewardship in particular. And I think they never had a better chance, Jackie, than what they had this weekend going down to Wexford to finally say, yeah, we're in the Lee McCarthy and we finally bet, one of the stronger teams in it, because they'll earmark Westmeath as a game they want to win. Dublin was a game they should have won, but now here's your chance, lads. There you go. You won't get a better opportunity. So that's why I think this has the potential to be a really good game on at the weekend, Jackie.
Yeah, look, it's a big one and it's pivotal in Leinster for sure. Dublin Westmeath, the other game as well on Saturday at 6 o'clock. Really looking forward to all of them. Shane, thanks a million for your company today. What game are you at this weekend?
Don't know yet, so hopefully find out soon. So we'll see what the crack is. So if we're not on duty, we'll make ourselves. We might pop into the Gaelic grounds. It's only in the road from us here. So
good. Well, look, enjoy it. Shane McGrath, thanks a million for being with us.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a million.
He hits it, it's over the bar! Oh, holy Moses!
All right, we're going to chat football now then. Enda McGinley and Niall McCoy have joined us, and no doubt about it, the Ulster Football Championship still the jewel in the crown. And I think particularly, I guess, Derry, what they've brought to the party as defending champions, Monaghan's performance against Tyrone was just so good. I think that one for a lot of people this weekend is just the one they're looking forward to, because nobody knows what we're going to get out of this.
Yeah, really, really appetizing clash, to be honest. Vinnie Corey has done such a good job of Monaghan. Like, it was not an attractive proposition for many county managers out there. Like, Monaghan struggled to a point, and Vinnie Corey stepped into the breach, and it was tough for him coming in because he was already involved and obviously would have played alongside the boys a lot. They got off to the rocky start in Division 1, but they've steadied themselves as only Monaghan can. But that performance against Tyrone, particularly the second half, like in the first half they were poor, there's no getting away, they were poor and flat and loose. But whenever they really got going in the second half, they showed the full sort of attacking threat that they do carry. Is there still a reliance on Conor McManus for the big moments? I would argue that there is. And Derry, probably of any team, are so good at identifying the key men in the opposition and trying to shut them down. And Rory Gallagher, that's a key tenet of his, to pick the two key men and try and shut them down. But Derry, as you say, their progress over the past several years, everybody obviously knows about it. They play that defensive style of football that we all give out about, but there's something very attractive in the way that they do it. They are so intense, they are so on point every single game. The consistency of their performances is arguably better than any other team in the country in terms of continually hitting that level. It's almost boring. You know exactly what you're going to get from Derry. They pose a really strong challenge to any team that's going to try and take them down, and it's up to Monaghan to see what they can do, because we sort of know what Derry are going to bring. It's up to Monaghan to see what they bring. If they bring what they brought in the second half against Rome, we're in for a fantastic game.
What do you reckon, Niall? Because I do think the jury's still out on Monaghan because of those reasons that Enda has outlined. We just saw such a Jekyll and Hyde performance from them against Tyrone.
Yeah, Jekyll and Hyde, that's perfect. And pretty much their season, I'd seen them early in the season, even in McKenna Cup, and they just looked miles behind. They looked like a team that had a manager that came in really, really late, and just to turn it around is just fantastic work. And then to go up to Oma and do what they done was just fantastic. For me, it's, Bagan changed that game in that second half. Like, they had his influence, and I suppose Kieran Hughes coming in, which was Darren obviously went off injured, the brother went off injured, and Kieran had such a, I just think he helped him get a lot of possession around that middle sector as well. So between him and Bagan, I thought they just completely twisted that game. But again, Monaghan, there's still a bit of a pickle for me, Jackie. I still don't really know just how good they are. They have character and abundance. We've seen that. They're never say a day attitude. We've seen that over the last couple of years. But to do, Micheál Bannigan's been excellent this year. McManus' accuracy is in, his eyes in, obviously. They didn't get much out of McCarn against Tyrone, and I think that's one of the big sectors they can see a real improvement on this weekend. But as Enda alluded to there, the matchups, Rory Gallagher's just been fantastic at it, and Chrissy McKagan and McCluskey to have two men that can really go to town on the opposition forward. So it's going to be a bit old style, where you're going to have these one-on-ones are going to be really decisive. But if they start the way they did against Tyrone that first half, I don't think Derry are a team right now that let that control slip. So that first half performance, I think it's lights out for Monaghan.
I think Derry have made a habit during the National League, and against Fermanagh it was really, really notable. They push Oran Lynch so high up the pitch on kickouts, and they get good joy from that. But if you look across the sort of the second division teams that they were coming up against and the goalies that they were coming against, Bagan is different. So how do they handle that? How do they allow for that? It would be, even against Fermanagh, twice Fermanagh had open goals to try and shoot at. They took it on once and made a bad job of it. But against Monaghan, are they going to take that risk again? And that's a sort of a key component of Gallagher, to really put the opposition on the back foot. The whole thing about Gallagher, like when you were down in a skill, watching them against Fermanagh, he made a real point of pointing out to the Derry players, roaring in his unique style, about Fermanagh players that he didn't think have legs, and roaring, particularly at Brendan Rodgers, to run at him, he doesn't have legs. So when you look at the likes of Darren Hughes, even when you look at the likes of Conor McManus, I think Gallagher will feel that Derry will have the legs on several of Monaghan's key men, and he will want to expose that. And I wouldn't be surprised that we hear him yelling once again at the weekend.
And the other thing, Enda, is Kieran McFall's absolutely flying on training. I have that in good authority. So
I love a fella flying. I love a fella flying in training.
Yeah, but
it's a proper championship rumour.
Proper championship rumour. So I wouldn't be surprised we see him from the start this weekend. You have him back from America. You have Ryan McInnesby landed back in Monaghan this week too, so maybe a bit soon for him, but we could see him about the panel. But McFall, I think, is going to have I think Gallagher has such trust in him that he'll throw him right back in if he's moving as well as he reportedly is, and that's just another powerful runner. It's another foil to Baggins kickouts to the middle sector. So Monaghan are going to have to be so inventive on them restarts, because if you've got Rogers, Glass, McFall in that middle, and McCluskey on the breaks, it's Lynch pushing up, which he's doing so much more than he did last year when people were not completely convinced about what he was bringing as that goalkeeper. It's a hell of a shield to try and pick your way through.
I watched the game between them last year, actually, Jackie, I was mentioning earlier, and there was huge energy from Derry, and they were like Duracell bunnies in the first half. It was a level of energy now that was remarkable, and in an amateur sports context, I am curious as to how sustainable it is in the long term. We've even actually seen, I think, in the Derry context, a little bit more evolution in that I don't think they're playing with that same fizz, because I think they probably realised that it isn't sustainable. Now, the game was a bit of a snakes and ladders to start with, and then McKinless finished off an unbelievable move, scored a brilliant goal, and obviously the customary OTT Gallagher celebration. But it was 1-2 to a point after 10 minutes, and Monaghan facing a big problem now, but they got a goal chance themselves a couple of minutes later. Ethan Doherty, by the way, what an important player he is for Derry. Really, really, really significant player in terms of, the amount of work that he gets through and what he's able to do in position, out of position, getting a hand in, a block in, a little flick here. He's very, very significant. But long story short, I think Monaghan won't want to let this game get away from them early. They did what they always do, which is fought to the bitter end, and in typical Monaghan fashion, they got it back to, I think, about 3 minutes with about 15 minutes into the second half. They had 17 scores on the board to Derry's 15, which is a good innings, but you can see 3 goals in any football match and your goose is cooked.
Yeah, big time. I don't think this one's going to be open and free-flowing, so there's not going to be too many goals either, I suspect. Let's look at the other game in Ulster then on Sunday. Armagh down in Clones at 4:00, and I do wonder about Armagh, and when you look at them and you think, okay, yeah, for all the progression they've made and for everything they've done over the last number of years, they still haven't actually gone further in the championship. They still haven't won an Ulster title. And you do think for Kieran McGeeney now, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's win or bust territory, but I would think that an Ulster title would be incredibly valuable to this team.
Yeah, I think so. I think whenever they were playing Galway in the National League, I was on and I mentioned that the Ulster title, it was put to me that the Ulster title is absolutely vital for Armagh this year. I disagreed with it at the time because of the round robin league. I don't think it's just as make or break for them, but them having ended up getting relegated now to relegated and suffer a loss to Down, Down in particular, if you look where the two teams are, Armagh should be several years ahead of Down. Kieran McGeeney took over Armagh when they were in Division 3. Down or in Division 3 now. That's many years ago for McGeeney. Many championship matches under his belt. Down or a young, very much developing side. So to get relegated and to lose to Down, that is going to create psychological skeletons that you don't need within your camp. So Armagh, for me, you have to go out and win this game. And look, I expect them to do so. I was really, really impressed with them against Cavan. I thought they were absolutely excellent. Yes, we can critique Cavan. I don't think Cavan just got to the pitch of the game, which is very unlike them. But Armagh were excellent. They just rediscovered that attacking energy that was so impressive last year. And then they've retained that sort of defensive compactness that they were obviously working on during the National League. They've got a few men back, and they are looking like a common team again.
What about Down then, Niall? Because there's definitely something about this team, and maybe it's the Kilcoo effect, maybe it's Conor Laverty, what he's done with them. But for all that, Enda's right, they're a Division 3 team, but they don't play like a Division 3 team, to be fair, either. I think what they've done and the progression they've made has actually been quite significant.
It's been brilliant, and there is absolutely that Kilcoo stamp on it. We saw 2 years ago when they won that Ulster under-20 title. We saw it again last night when they won another Ulster under-20 title. Their work rate is off the charts. And I have to say, watching the Down seniors, and I live just outside Newry, so I'll see probably more of them than I do any other team, even as an Armagh man. But the last couple of years, you go and you're watching Down, and at times you looked at some players and you almost thought they were cheating. They just weren't putting it all in. And I think there was instances when Down players weren't putting everything on the line for the jersey. And that was reflected in their performances. You know, they had good managers there like James McCartan, Paddy Talley. These are good men, good coaches. Ian O'Rourke obviously in with McCartan, but weren't able to get a real tune out of them. But Laverty has embedded a really young, hungry squad, and it's been abundantly clear that if you're not willing to put everything on the line, you're not going to be about, and simple as that. And between the under-20s given him a great platform. He's carried that in his senior team. Very unlucky not to go up, like a last gasp goal against Fermanagh, although they obviously got a late goal themselves. So as far as Down concerned, it's been an excellent campaign. And I was going to say it's a shame. As an Armagh fan, I'm quite happy that Oran Murdoch isn't playing at the weekend because of that rule, because I've mentioned this in the podcast before. That is a player that's going right to the top. He is absolutely superb. But I'm a bit nervous about the game. I think if Armagh play anywhere from 7 out of 10 plus, they should get over the line. But I don't see any sort of walkover. I think this Down team's just so industrious now. Not something we always associated with Down, but there's a style of play there that makes them very difficult, and they're not going to be swatted to size easy. So I think the Armagh attack's too much, like, you know, and the players they're bringing on, like if they bring on Rian O'Neill, they might hold him under serve again, and if there's any panic going in the last quarter, that should be enough to get them over the line. But it's a really interesting game, and it'll be a real indicator of where Down are, you know, how they did in Division 3. This will give us a real indication if they have made that progress, because I think we can all agree Donegal just weren't at it at the weekend.
You're not the only one nervous about the game.
Cork supporters, to be fair.
Yeah. Cavan get knocked out and then Down come along.
Yeah, that's the fear. But I suppose Armagh, you know, it's funny to hear an Armagh man admitting that they're nervous, Rory, because I do think the progression that Down have made, you can't ignore it. Like, are they right to be slightly edgy about this one?
Well, there'll be a derby feel to it. That will probably be a leveler to a certain extent. And yeah, I think I suppose they're just at a different stage of their development. I mean, it would be if you go through a league campaign where you've been played in kind of fits and starts, get relegated, go out and put what I would consider 2 reasonably good championship performances together, have an opportunity to go to an Ulster final for the first time in 15 years and blow that. I'm not sure if that's exact, like that to me. And I know, and I do accept Enda's point where the round robin is going to be where Armagh's season is ultimately judged. But there's a really good opportunity for an Ulster title here from an Armagh perspective. Surely that's a big carrot, and that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
I think for Armagh it'll be critical. They have to come out and start that game early. Like, Down, to be honest, Down against Donegal, Down in the first half were like a Division 3 side. Some of the mistakes they made, some of the turnovers made were really, really cheap. Donegal got their goal really easily. Donegal gets loads of good shooting chances, good attacking platforms, and just made a hames of them. So it was more Donegal were poor in the first half, and the key was then Down gained the energy, and then Down came, and whenever Down gain that energy and they come with an enthusiasm that's very, very hard to stop. For Armagh, they got to get out of the gates early, put this game to bed early, and I think I actually expect it to be a wee bit comfortable for Armagh. I would be expecting that of them. We'll see what they produce.
The Cavan match was big in that regard, and because Armagh have always looked like a side that haven't really dealt with being favourites too well in McGeeney's reign. Like, they lost to Down in 2017 in Newry, Down with the Ladium and Burns, and that's a match they never should have lost. They played them in 2019 again. We're going in as heavy favourites, and it took extra time, and Andrew Murnan fisted goal. Right. They went to Cavan. It was only second time they ever won a championship match at Kingspan Breffni, and they were favourites. And as you say, they started on the front foot. They had no Rian O'Neill in the team, and there's question marks about whether they could cope. But in Andrew Murnan and Turbot, even when Rian was there, they'd been the 2 best forwards this year, like, no doubt. And just the confidence to take that they really comfortably took care of Cavan without O'Neill's influence, although that was some save at the end, to be fair, should give them real confidence going in. The first 15 minutes, you see the first 15 minutes on Sunday be fairly crucial.
Yeah. Really looking forward to that Ulster Football Championship at its finest for sure. Let's move on to Leinster then and the semi-finals. Okay, we'll talk about Dublin in a minute, but I think the other game is actually the more interesting one, Enda, because when you look Louth and Offaly, you've got Louth chasing first Leinster final appearance since 2010, Offaly 2007. For whoever wins this, it's going to be a magnificent story to get to play Sam Maguire football, to get to a Leinster Championship final. I think it's just going to be an amazing game for one of these teams.
Yeah, for me, this could potentially be the game of the weekend here. I think the energy, enthusiasm, the positivity, like you can't beat. That's why sometimes the provincial club championships are so good, because you've got both teams coming in on an absolute crest of a wave, and then you get a really great game of football. Both Louth and Offaly are there. The Leinster Championship, like it is, for all its faults, it is the best second place championship in the country. You know, if you remove Dublin, then below that there's brilliant games going on. Louth obviously have sort of put themselves out there. It's a second place team. They finished highest of all the Leinster teams, obviously, in the league, bar Dublin. So they see themselves rightfully as the top ranked team outside of Dublin and Leinster. Offaly were disappointed to go to Division 3 a couple of years ago. They felt that a pretty poor campaign. They had a very young squad at that stage. They expected to bounce back up, and that hasn't really happened for them yet. But that win over Meath was absolutely massive for them. Like the sheer passion, we all know what they've come through as a team this year. But that seems to have galvanised them. Their energy since that has been remarkable. They carry a real pace. They're a very, very mobile team, not the physically biggest. And I think that's where Louth are pretty physically imposing, particularly in around the middle third. But a cracking game. I think both teams will be going at this hammer and tongue. Offaly obviously won it in the first half against Meath. Meath were asleep at the wheel. Like, it was so loose and so open. It will not be like that against Louth, who, albeit were very poor in their own first half against Westmeath. I would expect them to be coming out with absolutely eyes focused on that Leinster final prize.
Yeah, I agree with Enda, Rory. I think this is the game of the weekend in a lot of ways.
In a football context, because it has a bit of romance attached to it as well, given how long both counties have been out of the limelight in a Leinster final. But like it's a hard one to call. You will have an element of tradition. I mean, Offaly do have a good tradition. I think that tradition is important, as we know. But I suppose, like, I think Enda's point is absolutely spot on. Louth are, for the small county, they have a lot of big men. They're actually quite physically imposing, and I don't think they have any injury worries going into it. It's a case of they're probably going into it as well, maybe with less pressure on them, given the fact that they, regardless of what happens, they can they know that they're going to be in the Sam Maguire round robin, whereas Offaly probably have to chase that a little bit more. Now, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing is a discussion for another day. So I think all those little key factors, I think Mickey Hart will, have them primed and ready for it. Nobody loves the big day more than Mickey as well. And that's why I think he will go after this Leinster final, as much as people might feel, oh, look, it's a bit of a booby prize because you're going in to face more than likely, the big blue giant in Dublin in the final. So look, I think, but it is nicely poised. You've awfully come in with that spirit as well, obviously, because of the tragedy that happened with them this year, and they're on a different type of mission and a different type of journey. They've got a lot of very good young quick players, a lot of pace around their team, but they do lack a little bit of physique. And given the fact that, look, I think in Croke Park, yeah, it's kind of a difficult one to call, but yeah, you'd probably edge towards Louth, and we're certainly hoping.
Yeah.
the one issue when I was looking through, like against Westmeath, Louth used 9 forwards. Now that's 9 forwards over the course of the game, but even the latest used of those forwards was still on the pitch for 15 minutes. Only 2 of them scored from play. Sam Mulroy got 1-4 from frees, but that's the contribution from play of the Louth general forwards would be a source of concern. I thought Grimes was brilliant, to be fair. But Offaly will know they have to be really, really disciplined in defence and cover the runners, because so much of Louth's damage comes from men coming at pace that then can open the wee openings or draw the free. And it's critical for Offaly to try and mind that. But Offaly, the sheer energy that they showed, I'd be thinking they're going to get past anybody. But of any manager that's going to have his team playing with high energy, particularly after that, he's got the perfect hook in terms of their poor first half performance against Westmeath. And I think if Louth had been good throughout the Westmeath game, I think it would have been more difficult. But Mickey will not miss his chance to have his team primed for this one. So I think with that, they'll be able to negate that energy that Offaly's coming from.
I was trying, just before it come on, I was trying to work out managers who've taken counties to provincial provincial finals in different provinces, and Mickey obviously is trying to go for that. I come up with Mickey Moran, the late Liam Kearns, Micko, Jack O'Connor and Banty. I'm sure there's a few more out there as well, but we've
Paddy O'Shea.
Paddy, of course. We've two managers this weekend. McGeeney's trying to do it, and Mickey's trying to do it, provincial finals in different provinces. But Mickey, you said it there, Rory, the big day. You're spot on. Well, like Sam Mulroy, as far as I can see, it seems like he's been rushed back because he is meant to be a few weeks away, and yet he's thrown into a Leinster Championship quarter-final, even though Louth, although not mathematically, are pretty certain to be playing in the Sam Maguire race. So they seem to be going all out to make a provincial final, and they're probably for me maybe the only side that would give Dublin half a contest in a Leinster final. But he looked sharp. He set up a goal chance, took the penalty, missed the goal chance himself. But the fact that Mulroy's been thrown right back into the mix, to me, is a sign that, you know, they really are targeting this Leinster Championship, or certainly a Leinster final anyway. So for me, Louth also just to edge it.
I've just realised we're all going to feature pretty prominently now in the Kildare preparations, because we've just spoke about the Louth Offaly game framed by who's playing Dublin in the final.
Well, look, let's talk about that then, Enda, because I do think for Kildare, the anomaly of playing against Dublin is that every time you go even into a Leinster semi-final, or whatever stage they tend to meet them in Leinster, nobody is giving them any chance at all. So if you're a manager in that position, how do you even prepare for a game like that, particularly when you saw what the Dubs did to Laois at the weekend?
Absolutely, and particularly with what they done on Kildare last year. Like, Kildare last year had a credible Division 1 campaign. We're unfortunate to be...
They beat Dublin.
Had the new management team coming in, and there was still massive positivity about this, the dream team, and with a Division 1 campaign that seemed to sort of support that notion that this could be something here, and then Dublin went out and wiped the floor with them. So to then come to this year, where the management team has lost that gloss because of the poor Division 2 campaign. We've all sort of assumed there's issues within the camp or something. They're not pulling, just what you said about Down, Niall, where you sense a team absolutely pulling together and giving everything they have for the cause. Kildare, their performances have just been so poor. Them couple of really heavy home defeats never speaks well for where a team is at. So to give them a chance this year, it seems to be stretching the boundaries of credibility, particularly when Dublin seem to be in a much better place than they were last year. Men coming back into the ranks that frankly they probably didn't really need, but they're going to be a hell of a lot stronger for them coming back in. And Kildare obviously struggling, but look, it can galvanise a squad. They have almost nothing to lose in this game. Nobody, as we've just sort of evidenced, nobody's given them a chance. They did get key men back into the game during that match against Wicklow. So they are coming with a strong team, and as has been said to death, they have the talent. They have the talent to put together a really strong team. They have lots of really good footballers, physical, athletic, great skill sets, particularly up front. But the disparity between the two teams seems much greater than last year, and last year didn't end well.
Like, they won the under-20 title the other night, Jackie. They beat Dublin in the final after extra time below Carlow, and a reasonably good side. I think across the board at that particular age group this year. Actually, Down were impressive last night and possibly the best team in it, I would suggest, maybe, heading into the last four. But their record, the record is Kildare's record at underage level against Dublin has been very good for the last couple of years. They've beaten them regularly at under 20 at minor level. But that, for some reason, hasn't really translated up at the senior level, and that's the key. That's the big next challenge for them. And I suppose that's ultimately where they're going to find it a little sticky on Sunday. I mean, I looked at the game between the two in the early stages of the league, and they conceded an early goal just like they did in the championship last year. And in fairness, they could have downed tools as well, but they didn't. They stuck in there and they made it a bit of a dogfight. Now, it was January football, obviously, and it was lashing rain, freezing cold, howling winds. Very different, I would imagine, maybe to what we're going to be facing on Sunday coming. But they should look to try and at least make this competitive and get in Dublin's faces. But you would have to say Dublin, given where they're at now and the kind of scores they're racked up the last day and where they are in comparison to 12 months ago with the players back, are just at a different level.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think it is, Niall. Look at this Dublin team. Look what they have back. Look at the way they're playing, the free-flowing football. They're a better team this year than they were last year, aren't they?
Yeah. I don't share Rory's confidence that we mightn't have lashing rain at the weekend. Yeah, listen,
everyone's just pretty gloomy down in Cork, don't you?
That's for sure.
They're going for their 18th Leinster final in 19 years. Their only defeat in that time was the 2010 Meath, which was a crazy old season. But when you look at it, Jackie, Meath hit 5 goals that day. It was a crazy match. And for Kildare to have any chance this weekend, they're probably going to have to hit a minimum of 3 goals, and just that isn't happening. Dublin just seem to move through the gears nicely in the league. They're quite prepared to start, ramped it up perfectly, got bodies back, got Stephen Clarkson back, which is still hard to believe. But they're just... Did
that happen? Did that actually happen?
I don't know. I don't know. I think we might all imagine it, but yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs that you're probably going, if Kildare stay within 7 or 8 points, they're probably doing okay, which probably speaks more volumes about the Leinster Championship and the chasm between. And yeah, take Dublin out, and it's a fantastic championship, but it's just I just see no way Dublin don't win this comfortably.
Yeah, totally agreed.
It's almost back to that time. Dublin realistically are competing with themselves. You look at them boys that came off the bench the last game: Hurd, Merchant, Costello and Rock. So for the players that are actually playing, that's who they're competing with. That's where the drive will come on. There can be no now slipping standards. Desi Farrell is now sitting with all these people now having come back in, and that just is going to push everybody on, and they're not going to want to start losing their places. So the pressure on them to perform, but Dublin absolutely strong favourites. I just can't write off Kildare completely. There's too much talent there, but if ever their team is less than the sum of their parts, that's them at the minute. But you just will put an if, but Dublin will win it comfortably, you'd imagine.
Just one question, Niall, you're good on this. The game between Offaly and Louth is on beforehand, right? Mm-hmm. And Kildare, so if Offaly win, do Kildare take the field knowing that if they're beaten, they're playing in the Tailteann Cup?
Well, no, they won't. What Leinster, it'll depend on the need down to... Apologies.
They're next on the chopping block.
They're next in the chopping block, yeah.
So they will... So if Offaly beat Louth in the first throw-in, which is 1:45, Kildare will take the field for the 4:00 throw-in, knowing we lose this, and we're heading for Tally Cup as well.
Yeah. So
will that add anything to the fixture, lads?
It'll probably depress the scene a bit further. I'm running out to Dublin knowing your seats or your fate's already pretty much sealed. I don't know if it would spark this incredible performance, Roy, to be honest, but it's a good point. We're clutching.
But
they want that, Rory, and an extra 15 players as well.
It's technically Louth could still get dragged into it if Derry, Kildare and Offaly all win, but it's you get good odds on that now, to be fair.
You would.
Yeah. Well, look, lads, thoroughly enjoyed your company and really looking forward to a cracking weekend of matches. Here's hoping we get a few closer ones than what you boys are planning here, but let's see. Thanks a million, Enda, Niall, Rory, for another brilliant week, and we'll talk to you next week.
How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it! It's over the bar! Oh! Holy Moses!